Hey Brent, how you doing?
I'm good, Brad. How are you?
Good. Okay, so some announcements today. First of all, Brent's in his car, so if he sounds a little distant, that's why. Second thing is we've talked, and given just our schedule right now and inconsistency with this, we're gonna go back to making this free. So we'll continue doing it, and we're gonna refund everyone's money. So we really appreciate the people who signed up. So if you could just send me your email, my email is jelinbra1 at gmail. Sounds like jelinbra1 at gmail. Just send me how either Venmo or PayPal, and I'll send you the money back that you spent. I don't. I believe it's 2 months or 1 month. I'll look it up. So that's that. And going forward, we'll continue to do it. But thank you for jumping in with us. So today
Yeah,
we wanted to talk about a couple things. Brent, I'll let you kick it off with the being spinning your wheels lately.
yeah. So I just wanted to mention, we talked about this a little bit before about sometimes you feel like you're just spinning and you don't know where your direction is, and nothing you're doing is making any money, or you're not having success. And so, a lot of times, what I try to do is to help me get out of that funk is just to really go back to like the basics of what I know work for me, and kind of do like a mental reset. And it can be in the middle of the day too. It doesn't have to be each day. It can be. You kind of mentioned this before. You start from where you're at, right?
Y-
And go back in what you're trying to do, or at least for me, is to feel good about the decisions I'm making, and say, like, whether I did the trade or not, at least I waited for my opportunity, or waited and the opportunity never showed up. But I was patient and made my decisions that I wanted to make, and not what I felt like I was forced to make because of impulsivity, etc.
Right, right. So you got stuff going on, say in your personal life. I know you had a construction project for a while in your house while you were trading. Maybe your kids are going through something. There's so many things that could happen. How do you how do you compartmentalize, or how do you? Is there anything you can do when that bleeds into your trading emotionally? So,
Sure. So one of the things you can do is write down your list of rules of what you need to do, and whether it's you have your specific trade set up, and you said I'm only waiting for this, and you have the criteria set out, and you sit and you wait for that. And a lot of times that can help rebuild your confidence, because confidence is everything in trading, right? If you don't believe in what you're doing, you're gonna puke at the worst spots, or any sign of adversity. You're gonna get out of the trade and not stick with your stuff because you're not confident that you're right. That doesn't mean you have to have overconfidence where, well, I'm holding this because I'm absolutely right, but like holding it within your parameters and believing that what you have set up is the right thing. Because self doubt is a killer.
yeah, and if you don't go through that, you're lying because everybody goes through that.
Uh, yes, I still go through it every day.
Me too. Me too. I mean, we we can get into the overall trajectory of a trading career later and how the dark moments happen. I don't care how successful you are, you're going to have moments where you want to quit or you feel like you can't even get out of bed and do it anymore. That's just the way this is sometimes.
I mean, it's a really difficult, career choice, or if it's your hobby. Like, it's not always easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it and everybody would be successful. But there's a reason that it's so hard, and
Yeah,
I think that
yeah, yeah.
it's the mental part that's the hardest.
And I think it attracts a lot of different people who want to grow and learn and explore themselves at a deep level and really tackle those challenges because it's an accelerated path if that's what you want to do or if you enjoy that kind of work because this is going to push your buttons like nothing else.
Right. I mean, a lot of people get into it because they think it's easy money. It's the same reason people go to the casino. Like, oh well, I can make a lot of money really fast. Well, maybe once in a while you get lucky, but for a longevity purpose, the odds are totally against you if you're doing it only for the money. You have to like the challenge of the game,
Yep,
and how to win
exactly.
the game. And the game has nothing to do with money. That's
Right.
just how you keep score. So
Yeah.
what do you do, Brad? What do you do to get yourself out of a slump, or when you're spinning your wheels, or you're not able to fully focus on stuff? What do you do?
Yeah. So the thing that I had in mind when you were talking was the one-page trading journal, which is basically like a throwaway journal. You could even use like an Etch-a-Sketch or a Buddha board or whatever those things are called, where it disappears when you shake it. So
That's
basically,
a sketch. 1987.
maybe not an Etch-a-Sketch, but it's basically you're writing down for the day. Like say you're struggling, okay, and things are not going very well for you, and you feel like mentally maybe you're a little bit, you've lost your high self mentally and you're a little bit off. You write down some scenarios or some outcomes that could happen during the day or some levels, and when the market gets there, you do the trades, or else you don't do anything. And at the end of the day, you reevaluate how that went, and you respect yourself and you congratulate yourself if you followed the rules, and that's it. Doesn't matter what happened, it just matters that you did what you said you were going to do. And if you start building that way, and then you throw that piece of paper away and you start again the next day, you're very focused on, you're not worried about your personal life, you're focused on the job, on the ideas, and then when it doesn't work or does work, it's the new day. And that's very different than just kind of spinning and reacting and chasing the tail of the dog and things like that. So that's a tool that I'll use when things are a little bit off. It's more
I,
structured.
I want to go touch on that thing you just said about self-respect. I mean, there's no other job that can make you have less respect for yourself than this. Well, maybe there's a lot of other jobs that do that, but like having that ability to be like, okay, I'm really happy with all the things that I did, and I'm proud of the decisions I make, is a big deal.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. And yeah, and we have varying degrees of relationships with ourselves. Like I'm very hard on myself, so that kind of self-love stuff needs to be done probably a little more, because I can get really upset, but sometimes you break it down to a really simple next step, like, hey, I'm going to do this, and I'm happy because like during CPI, I had a specific setup and it didn't work. It didn't happen, so I didn't trade, and I felt good about that. Maybe if I'm in the flow more, there's other things that I can grab onto. But when you're a little bit stuck mentally, you got to really make it simple. It's kind of like an athlete struggling. It's like, hey, let's play defense. Let's get a couple rebounds. Let's box out our man and not worry about everything else. And then everything else kind of comes together on its own later.
Right. That's the focusing on what you expect and seeing if that plays out is a lot different than saying, well, I've got to make money because the market's moving around.
Right. And I'm going to throw in one other topic here quickly, and I've been talking to a few people lately, and I've this has come up, and this has come up for me a lot. Whereas you are going to take a trip or go somewhere, so in your head you say, "I'm going to come in tomorrow, make a little money, and then go on my trip." And what you're doing subconsciously is saying that you're not going to be patient, because what's what you're doing, even if you don't know it. Because when you're not going anywhere, you have unlimited patience because you got nowhere to go, nothing to do, nowhere. It doesn't matter. So you're inherently patient. But when you're going to go somewhere, there's this I want to make money and then leave feeling. And that can lead to some really bad days. So be very aware of that if you find yourself doing that.
Totally. I mean, that it causes you to be impatient is what that does. And it returns you back to like, well, I'm in this to make money and not to be making good decisions.
Right. And it's just the way it is. You keep working because you love it, and you keep working on yourself, and eventually somewhere along the way you make some money, and maybe you make a lot of money and you didn't expect it that way or that day, and that's just how it works. It doesn't work because it's a big up day or a big down day, or because somebody else might be making money, and it comes when it comes, and that's the way this works. It's kind of like when you meet your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your spouse or whatever, and you fall in love with somebody. Did you have to work really hard? Maybe not. Did you expect it that day? Probably not. That's how trading can be sometimes.
Well, and it's you know what, when I was first on starting and first few years of my career, I would struggle with the last hour of the day because I would have that same impatience because I'm like, well, the market's only open for another hour. I got to do something here. I can make something here, and try to make one more winning trade before the market closed. And that ended up being like one of my worst times of the day to trade. So I ended up not even trading. It became a habit that I wouldn't even trade the last hour. Now that's not the right thing, but it was the only way I could control myself.
Right.
Over the years I've grown and have been able to be like, all right, well, the market's going to be open tomorrow and it's going to be open next week, and I can wait. But it's a very real struggle for a lot of people, I think.
That's another good podcast, is how to do that, because I think that's like, it's like I have an alcohol problem, so I can't have the beer in the house, and I can't go to a party where people are drinking, and then maybe down the road it turns into I can go and I'm not going to drink because I trust myself, in varying degrees of how you're, how much you're addicted or your problems are. But it's replacing that behavior with another behavior sometimes that makes it easy to change. And I think
Right.
that's a whole nother podcast probably, but I like what you said about that.
Yeah.
But let's leave it here. I think it's a good one.
That's great, Brad.
All right, take care.
All right. See you.
See ya. Bye.